There's a lot of people that say, oh, Donald Trump, if only he had an ayahuasca journey and he would just transform and be a totally different person. Maybe, but my hypothesis is that if he had an ayahuasca journey and then went right back into his White House the way he is, nothing would change. In fact, it might actually embolden any egocentric, narcissistic impulses he has. Why is that? When we wake up, when we have a wake up experience, what I'm referring to there is a state experience, meaning an altered state. So we walk around and we see the world we do in an ordinary state. I have my coffee in the morning, and my partner, my kids, whatever. I have my job, I go to work, I have my meetings and calls, and I'm a professional this, and that's my role. And oh, I have an argument with someone here, and then I avoid it, or I maybe just get upset and I go and work out and I feel a lot better. And like throughout the day, I have my ordinary state, which basically just like this up and downs of ordinary reality, my perception. And when I have a wake up experience, what happens? I temporarily suspend that state. I temporarily suspend what they call it your default mode network in the brain. So the brain's neural connections that lead to the way I see the world, it's temporarily suspended. And the sense of who I think I am dissolves. And so maybe I have a state experience where I can walk through the forest and just like, oh, wow. Trees, they're like dazzling, right? Or maybe I fall in love and I have this altered state of just like, wow, everything is beautiful, and it just constantly just like ecstatic, and I'm in love, right? And so my issues and concerns and fears seem to dissolve and go away when I'm in that state. Or maybe I'm in a meditation and I just get into this relaxed state, and kind of the boundaries of my body disappear for a moment. And I just see everything seems fine. You know, the birds chirping outside my window just sounds so delightful. So in this altered state, this state experience, this wake up experience, I start to perceive reality in the way that it more closely is, in the sense that it is, I perceive the interconnected field of aliveness, of eros, if you will, of dazzling, ecstatic bliss, or at least I see the beauty in everything, right? I start to wake up to this oneness, the singular that has no plural, that which is beyond all specific individuated expressions, that which is ever present, this field of reality that if you can just take a breath right now and notice that it's here. It's never been gone. It's nowhere, but it's ever present, ever here. Hereless here. It's not here at the same time. So all this is what we experience what we perceive when we have a wake-up experience, where this temporary disillusion of our sense of self, and we open up to the possibility of possibility. Possibility of possibility. We open up to the infinity of intimacy, infinity of possibility. And by the way, none of these words can make sense if you haven't had this experience. But I want to propose that everyone has had some kind of true self experience, some kind of waking up experience. Maybe you had a child, a newborn baby, and you looked in its eyes and just like melted. Right? I remember falling in love with someone, and I was just looking at their eyes, and I was just like, I just dissolved. I melted. But in any case, the nature of a state experience is that it passes. Is that as long as we're alive, breathing, our boundaries are going to come back. The sense of self returns. And the question is, what self do you return to? Is it a self that is bigger than it was before the state experience? What I would like to invite you to consider is that unless you have a process to facilitate growing up, which is what I'm talking about, when you return to your sense of self, but in a bigger, more mature perception, unless you have a process, you'll go right back to where you were, but this time you're going to be infused with so much energy. And if you are in the current stage of your growing up, for example, if Donald Trump, let's talk about Donald Trump for a minute. And I'm just going to say, and this is not totally to pigeonhole him because he's much more complex than we think he is. Let's just say he's an egocentric narcissist. I think it's more complex than that, but let's just say that that's the case. If he goes on an ayahuasca journey, he has this blown open experience of like infinity, and just the ancestors speak to him, and the snake looks at him and he sees his shadow, and all this stuff happens. And then he comes back to his world with the same beliefs about the world, the same understandings, the same sense-making about the world, the same words he uses. Let's make a deal. It's my way or the highway. You're fired. Right? What else does he use? Efficiency. It's all about efficiency. It's about meritocracy. It's about making money. Drill, baby, drill. It's about make America great again. Become power. Peace through power. Peace through strength, as Netanyahu says. All these terms that reveal his worldview. And just that I won in a landslide election. I won. And I'm going to fix America. I'm the guy that's going to fix everything. So he'll come back from his ayahuasca experience so much more convinced that he is the savior of America, that God sent him to save America, and that he is the one to do it, and that he's better than everyone else, and that it's really about an autocratic response to any problem is the best response, and that he's the most powerful person in the world, and he'll probably push even harder. So just going back to you for a second, you and me, how do you understand yourself to be when you come back to your state, your ordinary state experience, your ordinary sense of self? What stage of development are you coming back to? Have you grown? And maybe I'll just simplify the response. There's different ways to respond to this question. Am I let's just call it a spiritual expert, meaning I have this wake-up experience and I come back and I see my role is I have this particular spiritual path that is the best one, and that's who I am. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to be the meditation teacher. I'm going to be the yoga instructor. I'm going to be the light keeper. I'm going to be the intuitive. I'm going to be the channeler. I'm a psychic, right? That's who I am. This is my identity, and I'm really good at it. Okay? Or am I what I'm calling a spiritual achiever? Meaning I have this insight, and my role is to apply these principles to manifest whatever vision I have. And my success is about how much I can imagine what I want and then make it happen through these spiritual practices and be successful at it. Or am I the more spiritual seeker, what I'm calling a spiritual seeker, that I actually don't care about being successful in kind of the conventional world. It's not about making things happen. It's about exploring and seeking, constantly exploring the dimensions of reality that I don't yet know. And I realize that I'm much more fluid than I thought I was. So I keep questioning myself, who am I? And so I'm continuously seeking altered states and altered different practices and incorporating different kind of communities and just like always just learning and growing. Or am I a spiritual catalyst? That's what I'm calling a spiritual catalyst. A spiritual catalyst says, okay, there's a lot of fluidity and I'm not who I think I am, but I can say that I can make an impact and facilitate transformation and growth in everyone around me and in myself. And I'm in a process of ever unfolding evolutionary processes. So I'm calling a spiritual catalyst, meaning I'm not just going to be wandering and seeking all the time, but actually I'm going to give my gifts to that which is needed and facilitate transformation and growth. Or am I what I call a spiritual prophet? A spiritual prophet takes such a big perspective and is not bound by your typical ways of making an impact. Spiritual prophet recognizes that the way that we are is the way that we perceive ourselves, the lenses that we put on about the world, the stories that we tell about the world. And so spiritual prophets challenge the stories that lead to suffering and offer new stories that lead to love and freedom and liberation. And not in your conventional ways. And it's not just anti-this or anti-that. It's a deep, profound way of looking at kind of long trajectories of history and seeing where we are at this moment. And then maybe finally, the last stage that we can see of growing up is spiritual, how do I say it? The last stage. It's the last stage, which is typically called the Unitive Stage, where every choice that we make is simultaneously action and rest. It's like all polarities are, oh man, this is getting beyond the domain of language. But basically at the Unitive Stage, I realized that reality itself is having a unique experience of me. Reality is perceiving through my eyes. And reality yearns to live through me. Reality is beating in my heart. And so I'm perceiving increasingly, I'm just looking to perceive more of that ultimate reality in the ever-present ordinary moments. But in any case, to summarize all this, if I have a waking up experience, if I experience myself as part of the field of true self, the field of reality that is interconnected, unified, one, it's an ecstatic experience. But if I come back to the same ordinary perception of who I am, if my sense-making around it, if my level of growing up is still seeing the world through separation, for example, if my personal life and my work life are so separate, if I'm always taking action and I never sit back and reflect, or if I'm always reflecting and never take any action, if I'm stuck on either side of kind of polarities, do I shut people out? Am I still obsessed with my life and my success, for example? Or do I continuously show up in the patterns of unconscious separation that is frantically worried about scarcity and not being enough, right? If I continually show up in these separate self-perception, have I really grown? And what is the waking up experience really offering me? If I can't show up in the world with that realization encoded in how I am as a person, how I love people, how I live in the world. And that's why it's not enough just to go on a psychedelic journey or to have a meditation experience. It's not enough to just go out in nature and take walks. If we go back to the city and we basically are constantly criticizing people and unkind, or just go back to a conventional job that stays within the boundaries of perfectionism or money making or something, if we don't also grow up in our perception of the world, it doesn't do anything. So a very simple way to do this is, when we have a waking up experience, talk about it with someone and ask them about it. Journal about what it means. Check your experience against some model of what it means to be human. And the unique self framework helps to do that. And the vertical development framework helps to do that. Is, who do I think I am? The world needs us to grow up. The world needs us to perceive the interconnectedness and be able to act on it from larger scales, and to give our greatest gifts to the needs of this moment.